As dusk settled over Hollow Creek High, a group of students gathered for a special after-school session. Their teacher, Mr. Harris, had promised them an exclusive lecture on local legends, and the curiosity was palpable. The room, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights, felt cold and foreboding. Do you also like watching horror stories? So turn off the lights of your room and close the door. And stay till the end of the video. Mr. Harris began by recounting tales of a spirit known as the Watcher, said to roam the halls after dark. Legend had it that those who encountered it were never seen again. The students laughed nervously, dismissing the stories as mere folklore. But when the clock struck 6, and the final bell rang, the laughter faded. One by one, the other students trickled out, leaving only Sarah, Jake, and Emma behind, determined to prove their bravery. Let's explore the old wing, Jake suggested, eyeing the darkened corridor beyond. The others hesitated but followed him, driven by a mix of fear and excitement. The air grew thicker as they ventured deeper. Old lockers stood ajar, and the walls were lined with peeling paint, whispering secrets of years gone by. They reached a classroom, the door creaking ominously as they pushed it open. Inside, desks were arranged in a neat row, but the blackboard was covered in cryptic symbols. What does that even mean? Emma asked, shivering. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, and the lights flickered violently. Just the old wiring, Jake assured them, but his voice wavered. Then they heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible. Get out. Did you hear that? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now. The three exchanged anxious glances. Probably just a prank, Jake said, trying to sound confident, but even he was beginning to feel uneasy. They decided to leave, but as they turned, the door slammed shut. Panic surged through them. They pushed against it, but it wouldn't budge. The whispering grew louder, echoing around them. Get out, before it's too late. In a moment of desperation, Emma grabbed a chair and swung it at the door. The wood splintered, and a crack appeared. They could see a shadow lurking on the other side, tall and ominous, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Help! Sarah screamed, her voice breaking. The shadow loomed closer, its whispering now a low growl. Keep pushing. Jake shouted, adrenaline fueling his strength. They slammed against the door together, and finally, it burst open, sending them tumbling into the hallway. They scrambled to their feet, racing toward the exit. The shadows seemed to chase them, and the air grew heavier, suffocating. As they reached the main entrance, they glanced back. The shadow lingered at the threshold, watching. They burst out into the cool night air, collapsing on the front steps. Gasping for breath, they vowed never to return. But as they looked back, they noticed something chilling. Mr. Harris stood at the door, his face twisted in a grotesque smile, whispering, "You shouldn't have stayed." From that day on, the school closed at dusk, and the legend of the Watcher grew. But the trio knew the truth. Sometimes, it's the stories you think are just tales that hold the darkest secrets. And some lessons are best left unlearned. In the quiet town of Maplewood, Maple High was known for its academic excellence, and its dark history. Rumors circulated about a student who vanished years ago in the school's infamous hallway, now dubbed the Silent Hallway. One Friday afternoon, a group of 4 friends, Liam, Mia, Ethan, and Zoe, decided to stay late for a project. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows, they finished their work and joked about the ghost stories. Let's see if we can find the Silent Hallway, Ethan suggested, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Despite their initial hesitations, the group agreed, eager for an adventure. They crept through the dimly lit corridors, their laughter echoing off the walls. The air grew colder as they approached a section of the school that felt different, almost alive. A flickering light revealed a narrow passageway that seemed to stretch endlessly. Is this it? Zoe whispered, her excitement fading into apprehension. Yeah, I think so, Liam replied, stepping forward. As they entered, the temperature dropped further. The walls were lined with old lockers, some rusted shut. An unsettling silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water. Suddenly, Mia felt a chill brush past her, and she gasped. Did you guys feel that? Probably just the draft, Ethan reassured, but his voice lacked conviction. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew oppressive. They reached the end of the hallway, where an old wooden door stood slightly ajar. Curiosity piqued, they exchanged nervous glances before Liam pushed the door open. Inside, dust-covered desks sat in rows, and the air felt thick with something unexplainable. A whisper echoed around them, sending shivers down their spines. Leave this place. What was that? Zoe squeaked, her eyes wide with fear. It's just the wind, Liam insisted, though he looked pale. But they all knew the truth, it felt too deliberate to be natural. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in, and they scrambled for the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, circling around them, and the lights flickered on and off. Get out, before it's too late, a voice screamed from the shadows. Ethan lunged at the door again, and with a mighty push, it creaked open. They tumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath, but the air felt heavier. As they ran, they heard footsteps behind them, slow, deliberate, as if someone were following. They burst through the front doors, not stopping until they reached the safety of the parking lot. Heart pounding, they looked back, but the school stood silent and dark, seemingly untouched. Did we really just experience that? Mia asked, trembling. Maybe it was just a prank, Ethan suggested, though he didn't believe it himself. From that day on, the friends vowed never to return to Maple High after dark. The legend of the silent hallway lingered in their minds, a haunting reminder of the unseen world that lurked just beyond their own. And sometimes, when the wind howled through the corridors, they swore they could still hear the whispers beckoning them back. It was a typical Friday at Crestwood High, where students buzzed with excitement about the weekend. But for Emily, it was just another day of solitude. As the final bell rang, she lingered in the empty halls, dreading the walk home. While passing by a row of old lockers, she noticed one that was strangely untouched. The number was worn, barely visible, 213. Curiosity piqued, she approached and noticed a faint whispering coming from within. "Help me," it seemed to say. Emily's heart raced. She glanced around, no one was nearby. Driven by a mix of fear and intrigue, she pulled the locker door open. Inside, the locker was filled with dusty old books and a rusted mirror. As she examined the mirror, her reflection began to warp, showing a shadowy figure behind her. She gasped and spun around, but there was no one there. Determined to leave, she shut the locker quickly, but the whispering intensified. "Don't go, stay with me." Panicking, Emily rushed down the hall, the voice echoing in her mind. But as she turned the corner, she felt an icy breeze sweep past her. The lights flickered, and she froze, sensing a presence behind her. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice shaking. The figure from the mirror emerged, a ghostly girl in a tattered school uniform. "I'm trapped, help me find my book." Emily's fear turned to sympathy. "What book?" she asked, her heart pounding. "The one in locker 213, the ghost replied, pointing back toward the locker. Reluctantly, Emily returned. She opened the door again, and this time, it felt heavier, as if the weight of the ghost's sorrow was pressing against it. Inside, she found an ancient diary buried beneath the dust. As she pulled it out, the whispers softened. "Thank you," the ghost murmured, her eyes pleading. Before Emily could react, the lights flickered again, and the ghost's form began to fade. "I was lost, now I can rest," she whispered before disappearing completely. Suddenly, a sense of calm washed over the room. Emily felt lighter, the air no longer heavy with dread. She closed the locker, her heart still racing but filled with relief. As she walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had not only helped a lost soul but also discovered a part of herself that craved connection. Crestwood High would always hold its mysteries, but Emily now understood the power of empathy in the face of fear.